My name is Grace, I'm 25 years old. Today I'm going to talk about the day that at Christmas dinner, my family gave gifts to everyone but me, so I revealed my success. It's a pleasure to have you here. Stay tuned until the end and tell me which city you're watching from. I want to know how far my story has gone. And click on like, subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss the next stories here on the channel. I was sitting at the far end of the table, right next to the refrigerator, where the cold hum drowned out most of the conversation. I wasn't supposed to be there. That seat was usually where they stacked the extra napkins and bottled sodas. But this year my spot was there, wedged between a cabinet and the fridge like an afterthought. It was Christmas Eve, and my parents' house was packed. My brother had flown in from Florida with his wife and 2 kids. My sister had driven down from Portland with her new boyfriend, who apparently was already being called part of the family. And my aunt and uncle were laughing too loudly, already tipsy off boxed wine. I tried to smile, to join in, but it was like watching a party through thick glass. I was there, but not really. Dinner was roast beef, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, and green bean casserole. Mom always made the same spread. She had even added her famous pecan pie for dessert. The house smelled like cinnamon and rosemary, and for a second, I almost let myself enjoy it. Almost. After the dishes were cleared and the kids were busy with hot chocolate, my mom clapped her hands and said, "All right, time for presents." That's when it started. My brother handed out gifts in shiny red and green wrapping paper, labeled bowed tagged. His wife gave everyone personalized mugs with their initials painted in gold. My sister, never one to be outdone, passed around scented candles from some boutique in Seattle. My parents gave my brother a smartwatch, my sister a designer purse. They all opened their gifts with squeals and laughs. Photos were taken. Even the new boyfriend got a leather wallet with his initials. The kids got dolls, Legos, video games. The dog even got a new sweater. And me? Nothing. No small box. No gift bag. Not even one of those last-minute chocolates from the gas station. No one said anything. No one even looked in my direction. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't forgetfulness. It was deliberate. I felt my stomach turn, but I didn't show it. I just sipped my water and smiled like it didn't matter. I could hear my mother's voice at the other end of the table, loud and proud. "Jacob just got promoted again, you know? That company is lucky to have him. And Hannah's boyfriend works in finance, such a smart man. We're really blessed." No mention of me. Not even a glance. I could have vanished into that refrigerator behind me, and no one would have noticed. This wasn't the first time. I'd always been the odd one out. The difficult child. The creative one who never quite lived up to the family's definition of success. I wasn't married, didn't have kids, and I wasn't working in a real job. To them, that meant I was floundering. They didn't know that I'd built a 6-figure business from scratch. That I worked with clients across the country. That I paid for my own apartment, insurance, every meal, every expense. They didn't ask. They never had. And I never told them. Not because I wanted to keep it a secret, but because I knew they wouldn't care. Or worse, they'd find a way to diminish it. Must be nice working in pajamas. So like you make money on Instagram? Hope you have a backup plan. So I stopped trying. I let them believe what they wanted. That I was lost, flaky, the family's little black sheep. But sitting there, watching my mom laugh like I didn't exist, something cracked. Not loudly. Not a scream. Just a quiet fracture, deep in my chest. Like ice breaking beneath your feet. You don't hear it at first, but you feel it. I excused myself to the bathroom. Locked the door. Stared at my reflection. "Don't cry," I whispered. I didn't. Instead, I took out my phone. Opened the photo album. Scrolled through pictures of my apartment, the one I bought myself. Of the small but beautiful office I had downtown. Of me speaking at that marketing conference in Denver. The plaque they gave me. The article in the magazine. The bank statement I screenshotted in disbelief when I made my first $100,000. I stared at all of it. Not to prove anything. Just to remind myself that it was real. That I was real. That I wasn't who they thought I was. That their silence didn't define me. When I walked back out, they were already cutting into the pie. No one asked where I'd gone. No one missed me. And that's when I knew. Next Christmas, I wouldn't be here. But before that, I had one thing left to do. When I was younger, I used to think it was my fault. The way they treated me. The eye rolls, the sighs, the backhanded compliments that weren't really compliments at all. I thought maybe if I acted more like Hannah or Jacob, I'd be accepted. That if I wore my hair like Hannah, studied like Jacob, laughed like Mom, maybe then I'd be seen. But I wasn't. Not really. I was tolerated. Like noise you can't shut off but eventually just learn to ignore. From the outside, we looked like a normal family. Nice house, nice holidays, group photos on the mantle. But inside, I was the buffer. The punching bag when things were tense. The forgotten seat at the table. I remember when I was 15 and started sketching fashion designs. I'd spend hours after school drawing, cutting fabric from old sheets, stitching by hand. I entered a school contest and won second place. I came home holding the certificate like it was gold. Mom looked at it and said, "That's cute, Grace. But real life doesn't work like Project Runway." Jacob got a B+ in algebra that same week and Dad took him out for steak. When I turned 18, I told them I wasn't going to college right away. I wanted to work, save money, and maybe start my own thing. The silence around the dinner table that night was louder than any screaming. My mother's voice was flat. "We're not going to support laziness, Grace." My father didn't even speak. Just shook his head, like I'd said I wanted to join a cult. 2 weeks later, I was packing my bags. They didn't beg me to stay. They didn't offer help. Just let me walk out with 2 duffel bags and a Tupperware of leftovers. I moved into a basement room in a shared house across town. The rent was cheap, the pipes were loud, and the ceiling had water stains that looked like faces. But it was mine. I got a job at a cafe, then another at a retail store. I'd work both shifts, then come home and take online courses in marketing, design, coding, whatever I could find for free or cheap. Nobody knew. No one asked. Hannah would post selfies in Greece with hashtags like #blessed, and Jacob would show off his new Tesla. I'd get texts like, "Hope you're doing okay," once every few months. Never a call. At one point, I didn't speak to anyone in my family for over a year. It hurt. Of course it hurt. I'd cry in the shower, in the back of Ubers, in bathroom stalls at work. Not because I was struggling. I could handle struggling. I'd done it all my life. It was the loneliness. The fact that I could win awards, sign clients, survive a pandemic, and they wouldn't even know. Or worse, they wouldn't care. But it was in that silence that something grew. Slowly, stubbornly. Like weeds in the cracks of a sidewalk. I built a website. Started offering branding services. Ran small campaigns for local businesses. Got referrals. Then bigger clients. Then recurring contracts. I reinvested every dollar. Slept on a mattress on the floor until I could afford a real bed. Bought groceries one can at a time. Eventually, I had enough to move into my own studio apartment. It wasn't huge, but it had light. Space. A kitchen that was mine. And still I said nothing. Every now and then, Mom would text things like, "Are you still doing that computer thing?" Or Hannah would comment, "Looks like you're keeping busy," on one of my rare posts. But they didn't ask real questions. Didn't want to know. I think they liked the version of me they had in their heads. The one who was always trying and always failing. The one who needed them, but not enough to deserve their attention. They didn't know I had employees now. That I gave work to other freelancers. That I paid taxes as an LLC. They didn't know I'd spoken on panels, consulted startups, mentored students. Because to them, I was Grace. The flake. The oops. The one who didn't follow the map. But I had my own map. And it was working. The last text I got from Mom before Christmas said, "Don't forget to bring pie if you're coming. The store kind is fine. No, we can't wait to see you. No, it'll be nice to have the whole family together." Just pie. I brought one. Of course I did. Because even after everything, a part of me still hoped. But that part was dying. Quietly. And it would be buried soon. What would you do if it were you? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe and activate the bell to receive all notifications so you don't miss the next story. There's something about starting from zero that makes you see everything more clearly. No noise. No opinions. Just survival and instinct. After I moved into my studio apartment, I started to build my days around what I wanted instead of what I lacked. I woke up early, even when I didn't have to, and made coffee with a cheap French press I got at Goodwill. I worked from the tiny kitchen table. No coworkers. No office gossip. No one asking about weekend plans. Just me and the screen. My first real client was a florist. She needed a logo and a website, but didn't have much of a budget. I charged $150. It took me nearly 2 weeks to finish because I obsessed over every detail. When I finally delivered it, she cried. She said it was more than she expected. That was the first time I felt like I could breathe. Word spread slowly. Her cousin owned a bakery. The bakery's friend ran a yoga studio. And so it went. I didn't sleep much. I didn't go out. Every dollar I made went into the business. Better software, faster internet, a second-hand ergonomic chair. One night, I ordered myself sushi to celebrate hitting $1,000 in savings. I lit a candle and ate it on my floor while watching a marketing webinar. It felt like a feast. I started posting my work online. Quietly. No big announcements. Just progress. It took time. I kept my expectations low. But then one day, a tech startup in Austin found me through a hashtag. They liked my aesthetic and asked for a proposal. I sent it heart-pounding. They accepted. It was a 4-month contract. My biggest yet. I remember calling my friend Mia, the only person I really trusted, and sobbing. "Grace," she said, "you're doing it." And I was. It didn't matter that I wasn't wearing a suit, that I wasn't sitting in a skyscraper downtown. I was building something real. But I still didn't tell my family. Every month, my mother would send a group message. "Dinner on Sunday?" And I'd show up, bringing a salad or a dessert, pretending I wasn't exhausted. Jacob would go on and on about his new office renovations. Hannah would complain about her nanny being late again. And I'd just listen, nod, smile when appropriate. Sometimes they'd throw me a bone. "How's your little side hustle?" Hannah asked once. I just said, "Busy." Dad chuckled and said, "Better marry rich, kiddo." Mom laughed. "Or at least get a job with insurance." I laughed too. But it wasn't real. They didn't know that I was the insurance. That I had health coverage through my business. That I had savings, retirement contributions, and more freedom than any of them ever talked about. The truth was, they didn't want to understand. It was easier to pretend I was lost. That I was still the kid who got a D in pre-calc and cried during family game night. But I wasn't that kid anymore. I was managing 3 clients at once. I was hiring help. I was speaking on Zoom panels with professionals twice my age. I had a spreadsheet tracking quarterly growth, and every cell in it proved them wrong. Still, I said nothing. Because part of me wanted to wait. I didn't want to explain it to them. I wanted to show them. Not with words, but with reality. That's what made me say yes to the conference in Denver. They invited me to speak on a panel about young entrepreneurs. Paid for the flight, the hotel, the honorarium. I bought a black blazer and a pair of heels that didn't hurt. Practiced in the mirror. When I walked on that stage, I wasn't Grace the Flake. I was Grace Saunders, founder of a growing design consultancy. People clapped. They took notes. A few even came up after to thank me. That night, in the hotel room, I cried again. But this time, not from pain. From pride. I took a photo of the stage. Of my name on the program. Of the skyline through the hotel window. I didn't post them online. I saved them. For the right moment. And I knew deep in my gut, that moment would come. Because sooner or later, people notice. Even if they don't want to. The house smelled the same as always. Rosemary, cinnamon, something fried and too buttery. I stood on the front steps for a moment longer than I should have. Holding a store-bought pie in both hands like an awkward peace offering. I wasn't nervous. I was prepared. But that didn't mean it didn't sting. Inside, laughter echoed from the kitchen. My sister's voice, loud, animated. My brother's deeper, more measured. Someone mentioned golf. Someone else mentioned a promotion. The air was thick with self-congratulation. I walked in and gave the usual hugs. Sideways, quick, the kind you give people you're told you love. Mom barely looked up when she saw me. There's space at the end of the table, Grace. Put the pie by the sink. She didn't ask how I was. No one did. We sat. My spot was at the corner, next to the garbage bin. They had set the table with embroidered placemats, except for mine. I had a paper towel and a bent fork. I noticed. Of course I did. But I said nothing. Dinner started with the usual parade of accomplishments. Jacob talked about his team expansion. Hannah shared her travel plans to Spain. Her boyfriend chimed in with something about market shares. And then came the jokes. Grace, are you still doing that online thing? Jacob asked, waving his fork vaguely in the air. Oh, she's an influencer now, Hannah smirked. Even the boyfriend laughed. Wait, seriously? My mother, without even glancing at me, said, she does a little of everything. It keeps her busy. I didn't correct them. I just cut my turkey. Then, when the plates were cleared, Mom clapped her hands. Presents. One by one, gifts were passed around. Wrapped, labeled, thoughtful. My name wasn't called. At first, I thought maybe they were saving mine. Maybe it was hidden under the table. But the pile disappeared. The ribbon scraps were swept away. Everyone was thanking each other, hugging, exchanging photos. And I had nothing in front of me. I sat there, holding my paper towel napkin, heart racing but face calm. Then, without warning, Hannah looked at me and said, Oh my God, Grace. We totally forgot you. That's so you though. Always flying under the radar. She laughed. Everyone else followed. I laughed too. And then I stood up. I actually brought something, I said. Everyone turned. I pulled my bag from under the table, took out my laptop, and placed it on the table. Clicked open a presentation I had queued up. I didn't speak with anger. Just with clarity. This is my company. I flipped through slides. My team, our logo, our client list, testimonials, screenshots from the Denver conference, articles where I was featured, income reports, a photo of me holding a plaque. Silence fell over the room. I made my first 6 figures this year. Fully remote. Fully legal. I employ 3 people. I'm on retainer with 4 major clients. And I just signed a lease for an office downtown. My mother blinked slowly. Jacob opened his mouth but said nothing. Hannah looked down at her wine. I took a breath. I didn't tell you because I knew you wouldn't care. And I was right. I closed the laptop gently. I'm leaving now. I don't expect applause or congratulations. I just wanted you to know that the person you forgot isn't invisible. Not to the world. Not to herself. Then I picked up my coat. And I walked out. Behind me, I heard someone call my name. I didn't look back. I got into my car, hands shaking, heart pounding. But it wasn't fear. It was freedom. I didn't go straight home. I parked in front of a 24-hour diner and just sat there, letting the silence fill me. My body felt heavy, like it had just run a marathon. But inside I felt something else, stillness. Not the kind that comes from nothing happening. The kind that comes after something finally does. After 20 minutes of just sitting with myself, I went inside. The booth was sticky, the coffee was burnt, but it was warm and quiet. I ordered pancakes and bacon. Even though it was almost midnight. I didn't look at my phone until I was halfway through the bacon. 5 missed calls. 3 from Mom. 1 from Hannah. 1 from an unknown number. Then came the texts. Mom, we need to talk. Hannah, you didn't have to do that in front of everyone. Jacob, nice show. Don't expect a medal. Unknown. Hey Grace, it's Mark. Hannah's boyfriend. Just wanted to say, you were amazing tonight. I stared at that last message for a while. Then I laughed, short, tired, genuine. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I opened my photo folder again. Looked through the pictures from Denver, the screenshots of my company dashboard, my logo on a tote bag I had designed, the email confirming my lease. I slept in that diner booth for 2 hours before heading home. The next morning, I woke up to more notifications. My mom had posted a long, vague message about how family is everything, even when it's hard. And Hannah had shared a filtered photo of the table with the caption, "Another perfect Christmas." I was invisible again. Just the way they liked it. But I wasn't going to disappear. Instead of stewing, I opened my laptop. Updated my website. Added the conference photos to the homepage. Created a post on LinkedIn with a caption that said simply, "Sometimes the people closest to you aren't your audience. Speak anyway." Within a day, it had over 1,500 likes. And then something strange happened. I got a message from a woman I didn't recognize. She said she was a friend of a friend and had seen me speak in Denver. She worked for a mid-sized tech firm and wanted to know if I'd be open to consulting. I said yes. Then another came in. A referral. Then a podcast invite. Then a brand deal. Each one was a quiet confirmation. You were right to speak. You were right to walk away. Later that week, Mia came over. I told her everything. She didn't judge. She didn't question. She poured wine, made popcorn, and said, "Let's toast." To what? I asked. She raised her glass. To the moment you stopped asking for a seat at their table and built your own. I clinked mine against hers. And I didn't cry. Not this time. Because I wasn't grieving anymore. I was growing. The new year came quietly. I didn't post a big recap. No goals list. No dramatic caption. Just a photo of my office window at sunrise, and the words, "Beginning again on my own terms." I spent January setting new boundaries. No more responding to texts that made me feel small. No more holiday invitations from people who only remembered me in December. No more pretending. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something. I wasn't chasing their approval or hoping they'd change. I was simply living, working, growing, existing without shame. In early February, I got an unexpected email. From my mother. The subject line said, "Lunch?" I stared at it for a long time. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I didn't know what I wanted to feel. The message was short. "I've been thinking about you. Would like to talk. Just us. No pressure." I showed it to Mia. She shrugged. "Go if you want. Don't if you don't. You owe her nothing." That was the part one hadn't truly let myself believe until then. I owed them nothing. Still I went. Not out of guilt. Out of closure. We met at a quiet little cafe halfway between our homes. She looked older than I remembered. Tired. She smiled when she saw me, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hi, Grace." "Hi, Mom." We ordered. Talked about the weather. The coffee. Nothing that mattered. Then she set her cup down. I didn't know. I said nothing. She looked down at her hands. "I should have asked. I should have seen you. I didn't mean to make you feel invisible." I nodded. Not in agreement. Just acknowledgement. "I thought you were lost," she said. "But I think I just didn't want to accept that you were doing fine without us." That was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. "I am," I replied. "Doing fine. Without you." She blinked. Swallowed. "I'd like to change that." I folded my hands. "I'm not angry anymore. But I'm not interested in being who I was to you either. That girl doesn't exist anymore." She nodded. "I understand." We finished lunch. Paid separately. Hugged at the door. I walked away without looking back. That night, I sat in my apartment with a glass of wine and reread my client calendar. It was full. So was my heart. I wasn't chasing anything anymore. No apology. No acceptance. No seat at any table but my own. Grace Saunders. 25. Business owner. Independent. Loved, finally, by the one who mattered most. Herself. If you like stories like these, click like, subscribe, activate the bell, and send it to someone you think will also like it.